Okay, it looks like we're live, at least according to YouTube I am. So Louise was the winner of the competition, so I just brought the model in and gave her some simple nightwear. I'm trying to think of what scene I'm going to do with her. There was a bedroom scene that I liked. See if I can find it. I think it was attic. Is it that one? No, not that one. This one. Let's merge that into the scene. Okay. Let's get rid of these curtains. The camera is targeted on someone. There we go. Now I like the idea of having sunlight coming in through the window. Let's get rid of these cameras. We don't want the cameras. So before we do any posing, first thing I want to do is see what lights we've got in the scene. What our environment's like. Diamond scene. We've got some weird. There we go. Okay, so the dome's on. We don't want that. We just want scene only. That's better. So it should be black. Now we know we've not got any other lights. Do Control L, it will set up so you can see things easier when you do start adding lights. And let's think of a pose we can have Louise in. In fact, let's give some colour to this night shirt. See what the presets are. If you go and select the nightgown, go to the materials IRA, we've got a selection of a few different colours actually. It's like a textured. That's interesting. Blue does not suit Louise. That possibly does, or could always go for black. Black and red normally works. Yeah, we'll go for that for now. Let's see if we can find. I want a seating pose on the edge of the bed. Maybe looking out. That's not too bad. That or that. Let's try that one. I think that can work. Yeah, it looks good for now. Let's get some light going. So all I'm going to do is pull the camera back, probably about here. Create a new light, apply it to the active viewport. And if we switch to that light, and I want it directed straight into the window. If I go back to perspective view, zoom in. Let's set, give it some luminosity, a couple of zeros. So we've got a little bit. I think we're going to need some more. A couple more. Okay, starting to get some light coming in. It's early morning, so 3500 for the temperature. Gives it more of a yellow glow. Sphere might be a better idea. Yes. Let's make the actual size of the light bigger. That's it. Now, I need to think about camera angles and placement of her on the bed, and also deforce this dress, nightshirt, whatever you want to call it. I think we need to pull that leg down. So all I'm doing is I'm just trying to look what would be a good angle to have a picture of her in. Let's have a look at the aspect frame. Let's see how that looks. Come on. What we're going to do now is the simulation, because this nightshirt is actually a D-Force one. When I find it, there we go. So we want to, we want to start from the memorized pose. Current frame, that should be fine. Okay, so if we turn off the hair, that will speed up the simulation. So we start from memorized pose, and what it will do is it actually starts the simulation from her T pose. Well, actually, it's an A pose, and it just gives more chance for D-Force to actually run and not explode all over the place. Because there's a lot of bumpy surfaces here, we kind of want to give it the best chance of laying down flat. So the first 50% is it putting into the pose, and then once it's in the pose, it will then drape. And what you can do, if you find that it's taken a while to run the simulation, you just turn off anything else. If you just hide it, like I hid the hair, if you just hide, say you could hide the rest of the building other than the bed, and that will speed it up a little bit. And of course, I start streaming, everyone in the house wakes up. So if you just joined, welcome. I'm this is Louise without hair. I'm just currently running a D-Force simulation on her nightshirt, and then I'll be doing some adjustments to the pose. So she's in her almost final pose. I want to sort this leg bit out, but see now it's just adjusting the drape of this. All depends how much of an upskirt I really want. I might have to give these a bit of colour. Nearly there. You can actually cancel at any time and it will still retain the information. So I've had before where I've run a simulation and at about 20% the dress has then exploded. If you catch it and cancel it at 19%, it's actually been okay. So I do that with hair as well, because hair tends to not deforce too well. Let's turn that back on. Let's see what it looks like. That's, see, sits quite nicely. Now, let's think about the camera angle I want to go for. Now, I don't want to go 16 by 9. Where's my render settings? We will go for, we'll go portrait, but I don't think that's going to work. I think actually a square, I want to get some of her face in, but also I kind of like the idea of, you know, but this will have to be fixed. And that. And the clipping of the hair. So one thing at a time. I think I'm happy with that. Let's see what, if we went landscape, no. We'll go with square. So what I do, I stick a camera, active view, just click OK, and then that way I've got my camera set up. Just make sure you don't move the camera afterwards. So let's start with the hair, because that's actually very easy to fix. I'm just double clicking on the hair and it will select it in the scene. So you can double click the model and it will select the base model, double click the hair. Doesn't always work on the clothing unless you can just get the clothing. Anyway, double click the hair. Now this one comes with, we are left, back left. Where is it? Back left, back. No, that's the back. I want front left. Front left behind shoulder. There we go. And what that will do is it puts the hair behind, and it's quite effective. Let's just have a look at how the camera's looking. I might leave that hair. I might move it behind. We'll see. See how it is. Okay, so now that leg. Let's get the screen a bit bigger. Now we want to remove it up slightly. That's not up. Undo that. Side to side. And then have that. Twist. Could have it. could actually do that, and I think that would work. Let's make sure it's flush. I think that works better. Less clipping, and that kind of looks like it's bunched around her legs there. So that I'm happy with, This looks good so far. Now this needs to be sorted out. So again, perspective view. Let's have a, yeah, doesn't quite work. What we could do is a fist. So pose controls, hands, right hand fist. Let's see what that's done. Now all I'm going to do is just drag her arm up just a little bit and see. Well, that's, yeah, that's the game's interpretation of a fist. That will be because of the pose. So I have an asset. Zero that. I've just got to remember what it was. Hand. Hand, dial up. This one, I think. No, that's male. This one. Poses. See, most of the time is spent. And it zeroes the hands. And now I do fist. That's a little bit more like it. That's a little bit more like it. Wish that wall wasn't quite there. All I'm going to do is just line it up, and then I'm going to grab it and just pull it down to the bed. Just see where it fits. So I want it to look natural, but also when you lean on as she is, you'd actually have your arm away from you, but not too far. See, that's too far. This bubble thing here is actually quite annoying. Let's see. See, that doesn't quite work. That could, let's see, what's the contact of that like? Oh well, what you don't see won't hurt you. Okay, now I'm happy with that. Next thing we need to do is her face. So again, just double click it on Louise, and we're going to go to pose controls, head, expressions. We want, if the sun is shining at you, you're going to be, yeah, I swear she looks like she just wet herself. You're going to be squinting. I don't think I have. No, that would be too easy. So what we're going to do is, there's our squint. Now, I find when I'm doing models, it's too easy just to leave the eyes, but eyes can give a lot of the expression. I have this asset here, and positioning them that and down a bit can add to an expression. Now we need her mouth to actually be doing something. Let's give her a bit of a smile. A little bit of a cheeky one, just to the side, like that. Just subtle amount. Can't really tell it in the camera. I'm actually going to move the camera, I think. Get more of the wall. I wonder, actually. I wonder. Sometimes the first position isn't the one you end up with. That could look better. Let's see what that looks like with the light. Okay. So now obviously we've only got the one light source. We need to light her as well. So to do that, we're going to add some backlighting. Since this is on the opposite side of the camera, this will be the rim light. So again, we'll use a spotlight, and to make it easy, I'll name it lights. This we want not too hot. Rectangle. Let's go to the camera view. I haven't changed the luminosity of this, so it's not going to do much. So let's put a couple more zeros in. Starting to get a little bit of backlighting there. Let's try a couple more. That's a little bit too much. Okay. So you see that backlight has softened the shadows, and we can now see the features of her face. And there's one other light we're going to do. It's a little bit bright there. Let's see if I can just pull that in a little bit. We'll go for one more light, which is going to be an edge light. I think that's as far back as I'm going to get it. It's being an idiot and won't let me rename it. There we go. Edge light. Oh, that's going to trigger me. I can't have that. There we go. And this one needs to be a weak light, so we'll just give it 2 of those. 1000. Rectangle. We'll leave it at 10. So just want a little bit of light on this side. better. Drop it down a little bit. So we've still got some shadow. Okay, what can be good to do? We know the spotlight on the front. It's called it spotlight, but that's really our sun, effectively. You want to have a fine balance between the two lights. So what you can always do is change the colour. And you can use the colour as a guide to see how much light you're getting. You see on her arm here, where I'm tracing with my mouse, that's a good blend of light across both. That could be helpful when you're trying to work out whether there's too much light or not enough light. If we turn the sun back on, so I'm pretty happy with that. What time are we at? Okay, perfect. Render settings, let's work through it. So the environment is fine, scene only. We're not actually using the HDRI for this. Tone mapping. A lot of people don't touch tone mapping because I don't know why, but I think they're afraid of it. They don't know what it does, so they tend to leave it alone. I won't go through every single thing, but I haven't got long enough for this. But personally, you can change the exposure. If you use a lower value, let's say 11.5, I've used that a few times. What that does is it brightens the entire scene. See, it's completely washed out a lot of the colours, and it's also changed the shutter speed. If we then go to the gamma and we knock this down 1.15, that pulls the brightness, the exposure, that pulls it back in, so we start to get a toned effect. Now this is a little bit too extreme, but that's mainly because the light coming in from the front is actually quite a yellow light. In fact, I think I'm going to knock that up for 500. Yeah, and also knock it down just a little bit, take the intensity off. What I'm looking for is areas where, like down here on the leg, where you get no colour, where it's just white. That means there's too much light on it and it needs to be brought back. I'm actually thinking that might be enough. I think we are going to knock this down by a lot. Just giving it a chance. Just pulling that light in just a little bit more. Still a little bit too bright. If we go for 12, let's try really knocking it down. That might be too much. Yeah, I lose the. Okay, let's put it down to 6. That's about where I want it. Still a little bit too bright there. That could be my edge light. Let's pull that down a bit and see. That's better. We're still getting the eye detail, but we're getting some of the shadow. Yeah, okay. The other thing we need to do, perspective view. Click the camera. I'm going to add a depth of field. Just go to camera, depth of field, turn it on. Now it's automatically picked up the model. So for those that don't know, depth of field basically gives an area that's a focal point. And that's what we got here. That's what this box is. So anything before this and anything after this will be blurred. And depending on the size of this is how much of that, how blurred it will actually be. Now we want to bring the focal point to her eye line, which is this point here, this green line. The f-stop increases this box, but I actually want to put it at 22 because I think that should be fine. And what you should see is that this arm should be slightly blurred, this should be in focus, that should be slightly out of focus, and the background should be blurred as well. We're going to make it easier by putting denoiser on, just so yeah, you get an idea. So yeah, so you can see the back has got a blur, and the arm will be a bit more blurred. Also tells me that the tone is not quite right. Let's try 8.5. Let's put it. That's a little better. Right, let's turn that off. Turn that off. So that's one set of lighting. I'll probably go ahead and render that out. As I've got a bit of time, let me show you another way of doing it. So back to perspective view, what we'll do, we'll just turn off our sun, the rim and the edge. And let's say we wanted to use a HDRI out the window. So environment, diamond scene. Let's browse for a HDRI. I'll do that off screen. Something that'll do. Take a moment to load in, and it does. And now if we have a look at the IRA, remember I've turned the lights off and the sunlight from outside is turned off. So all we'll have is the HDRI. You see, it's not particularly bright. If we draw a dome, so that we actually have something to look at, look at that lovely Yep, that's a house in the middle of a road. Sunny. Anyway, doesn't really matter. You can rotate the dome, but these purposes I'm not bothered about that. Let me get back in the house. There we go. So what we can do, nice easy trick, when the computer responds, not responding, yeah, want to bet. turn that back on, and we have two controls here. No one knows what the difference between them is, because they both do the same thing. You set the environment intensity, like you double it, it makes the HDRI brighter. You set the environment map, you double that, it makes the HDRI brighter, as you can see. They do the same thing. They probably do it in a different way, but for for my understanding, they do the same thing. So we can see that just by doing that, actually, if I go to camera view rather than, you can see we've got a decent bit of colour. Let's put that up to 16. We're not going to be looking outside, so we're not bothered about the outside being completely weird. Who's messaging me? Yeah, so see, colours looking a bit better. Actually looks better than the 3-point lighting. We could probably increase it a bit more, actually, just to get a bit more colour. Now, I would argue that that looks a much more natural colour than the lighting setup from before. I mean, the skin looks a bit more natural. But one thing you won't get is the shadow. Not so much. That don't look too bad. But what we can also do in the room, so we've got that set. If we turn that off, it's texture shaded. What I sometimes do is I will create plane. Select the plane. Oh look, I'm moving the camera. What an idiot. We'll undo all of that. Okay, and go back to perspective view. And now we'll move the plane. Now this is creating what some would call mesh light or a ghost light. Well, it's a ghost light if you turn the geometry off. Okay, I think that's, where is it? Is that the edge of it? Let's move that over. It's just a mesh light. We're just basically making an emissive surface. That's all it is. Ghost light, mesh light, emissive surface, whatever you want to call it, it all does the same thing. The computer's really having a think about it. So all we're going to do is we just make it white, which effectively turns it on. That gives it a colour. We'll go KCD. Let's look at the camera. Now, 1500 luminance on a emissive light is going to completely blow this out. As you can see, completely blows it out. So you always want to dial this down. I'd say let's start at 500. Even that's far too much. You can leave this at C, but I find it's easier just to go to K and then dial this down. And I'd say knock it down to 50. And that's not too bad. That's quite an even light. But one of the things you'll find, we've got quite a dark edge here, which actually isn't too bad. But she does look a bit flat because the light from the front isn't really doing much to separate her from the background. This is another reason why you would have a depth of field to try and pop her out from the background. What we can do with this is we can actually add a ghost light, and this one we will be adding a ghost light. Actually, I'm fine with that colour. To do that, we are going to make another plane. This one we want smaller, we'll just do it 1 meter. Perspective view, find our, let's call it ghost light. Pick this up, move it along. And we want to put it behind her. Let's actually look behind. You want it opposite the camera basically, but you don't want it directly in front of the camera, you want it to the side slightly. Something like that. Let's pull it up. Okay, and that's a bit too big. So let's scale it down, scale the X. Okay, oh no. Scale that down, scale the X down. Just a little bit. Okay, and on this one, again, you go to Surfaces, Default, Animation. Now you can actually do it a different way. I've seen some people show this as the way to do it. Where you go into the Presets and Surfaces and go to Shaders. And under Eye, you'll see emissives. And yeah, you can double click these and they'll create an emissive surface. But since you always end up editing it anyway, just do it this way. And the computer catches up with me. Okay, again, I'm going to turn it white. Now, if we go to the camera, look at NVIDIA Array, you should see this should show up as a big white plane. You might need to move this a little bit further over, but we'll see. Yes, so there you go, nice big white plane. Doesn't give off any light. Change it to K. You can see, gives some light along the back there, and also looks like a giant illuminated sign. We'll leave it at 1500 for now, because if you go to geometry, where it says cut out opacity, click that and you put 0.000000001. What that'll do is it will effectively give it no geometry, so it will be see-through or almost see-through, but it will still emit light. But what you will have noticed is that the amount of light, because the geometry is really reduced, the amount of light has also reduced. So there's a little bit here, but we probably just want to mark it up a little bit more. So hence why I left that at 1500. Let's go mad and put an extra 0. See, that's far too much. We knew that would be far too much. So I would say let's go with 35,000. Let's see what that looks like. Not too bad. Not too bad. But it's still creating light over here. So turn off two-sided light. It will stop reflecting out the back, and it will only reflect on the character. And so you see, we've now got a bit of light here, and a bit down there, and it just helps pop her from the scene. This is a little bit too bright here, however. So let's do 2700. Also knock that down. So we've still got the depth of field on the camera. Let's drop that down to 2. Still a little bit too bright there. Put the denoiser on so we can get a better idea. Yeah. So you see, it just helps bring her out from the scene a little bit. Obviously, this is a denoised, so it doesn't, you know, it won't actually look like that when it's rendered out. I think what we can do is those eyes, let's have them looking the other way. So I'm going to save this scene to render out later. And there's one final thing that I want to do just before I finish. And the computer catches up. There we go. As we are going to get rid of these lights, get rid of the sun, get rid of that. Let's give her a standing pose. Something. That looks brilliant. Let's clear the simulation. No, terrible. That's better. Okay. We'll do a very quick open lighting setup. Just click on an environment because it's a 16K HDRI. It takes a little while to open up. I'm going to turn that off and let's reset both of those. So you want top light and then opposite side, and then you want, and you generally want to do this at a different angle to the camera, a facing light. Let's go scene only. It's the camera. Turn that on. Rectangle 35, 35. That's just the size of the actual light. And this couple of zeros. Knock that down to 5,000. See, we're getting a bit of light. Let's turn the tone mapping off for now. So we're getting a bit of light. Go to the next one. That will be rectangle 35, 35. Couple more zeros. 5,000. Actually 5,500. Again, a little bit more light. And then front light. You want that 25, 25. Spread angle 40 for now. This is an eye light. And again, just a couple. Let's see. Oh yeah, let's sort the camera depth of field. Turn that off for now. There we go. So you see the front light is a little bit too strong. So we'll knock that down. And we need to do these two lights. Give them an extra 0. Extra 0. Okay, basic 3-point setup. Go to your tone mapping. Again, 1.5, start somewhere. And oops, too much. 5. Too much there. 0.95. And then 12. Let's give her some makeup. Try that. Yeah, that does not suit. It's a little bit too dark. There we go. Now you have just a basic camera setup. No background. I'll save that and render that one out. Right, that's it for the hour. Thank you for those that watched. I will see you next time.